In a world where every newborn is born with a unique superpower, Amelia was born with the ability to reset time. At first, she thought that her power wasn't that useful, as she couldn't do anything but go back and redo moments from the past. However, she soon came to understand that her powers could be incredibly powerful, as she could undo any mistake and make things right. Despite her powers, Amelia was always an outcast. She was never quite sure why, but she always felt like an outsider in the society of those who had superpowers. Her parents tried to explain that her powers were unique, and that was the reason she had trouble fitting in. However, the explanation never quite felt right to Amelia. Amelia's life changed when she met a young man named Thomas. Thomas was different. Unlike others with superpowers, he was unable to do anything. His powers were so weak that Amelia never thought he would be able to survive in a world where everyone had a power. However, Thomas was different. He was kind, funny, and treated Amelia like she was special. One day they went on a hike in the woods. Suddenly an earthquake struck and Thomas was swallowed up by a giant crevice. Amelia felt helpless as she watched Thomas fall to his death. She was devastated and felt like she had lost everything. In that moment, her power activated, and she suddenly found herself back on the hike. Amelia couldn't believe what had happened, and at first she thought it was a dream. However, as she looked around her, she saw that everything was back to the moment when the earthquake struck. She couldn't believe it, but she knew what she had to do. She raced down the path, using her power over and over again to try and save Thomas. Each time she reset the clock, Amelia was able to save Thomas, but each time he was a little bit different. Sometimes he would stumble in the wrong direction. Sometimes he would fall and break his arm. Each time Amelia reset the clock, hoping that the next time would be the one that they would be able to escape the earthquake unscathed. However, as Amelia continued to reset time, she gradually began to realize that something was not right. Each time she reset the clock, something in the world changed. Things became darker and more sinister, and she began to suspect that her power wasn't as simple as she thought it was. As Amelia pushed herself harder and harder to save Thomas, she began to understand the horrifying truth about her powers. Each time she reset the clock, she was changing the course of time, and the longer she used her powers, the more the world around her was affected. As Amelia continued to use her power, she unraveled a dark and sinister story that the world had been trying to hide. Her powers were unnatural, and they had been created through an experimentation process where people were given powers in exchange for their freedom. The world was built on the back of this suffering, and every time Amelia used her powers, she was causing more and more suffering to those around her. The more Amelia discovered about the true origins of her powers, the more she realized that she had to change things. She couldn't go on like this, causing countless deaths and destruction each time she tried to save Thomas. In a desperate attempt to make things right, she used her powers one last time to bring back all those who had lost their lives as a result of her meddling with time. In the end, Amelia and Thomas were the only two people left alive, and the world was a changed place. Though Amelia's powers were gone, she knew that she had done the right thing by changing the course of time and freeing people from the suffering that her powers had caused. The world would never be the same, but she knew that it was now in a better place, free from the dark secrets that had haunted it for so long.